Kayden McDonald betting on himself in the NFL draft is the right move.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Hump Day edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the number one sports podcast network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, veteran sports talk host, delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day. During today's show, we will discuss if Luke Montgomery and Austin Siereveld should test the waters and declare for the NFL draft, as well as if Arvell Reese is projected to be a top 10 big pick. But before we get to any of that, I got to bring in my guy, Ryan Roberts. He is my favorite NFL draft analyst, and as Ryan is here, Ryan's a guy we're going to talk to quite a bit between now and the NFL draft because Ryan has all the details. He watches the film, and he has really good analysis on all the guys going into the draft. And Ohio State has some guys that are going to be first-round picks, some guys that might decide to stay in school. And we're going to figure out if these players are making the right decision. We're not doing scouting reports right now. That'll be saved for a longer conversation about some of these players down the road. But Ryan, the first guy up is Kayden McDonald. I think you sent a text to me about him simply stating he is a stud because he is. He is a mammoth human being, not the tallest guy playing on the interior, but he wreaks a lot of havoc. And normally I'm a guy, Ryan, when it comes to someone being a full-time starter, I prefer for a player to have 2 years of being a starter in college before declaring for the NFL draft. But Kayden McDonald, to me, is the kind of athlete and the kind of player after 1 year being a starter, being an All-American, this is the right time for him to go off to the National Football League.
I agree with you, Jay, because I remember the first time I saw Kayden McDonald, because I didn't know anything about him, and I watched the Texas game, the first game of the year, blindly, because that was one of the talking points going into the year for Ohio State, is you thought that there was obviously a lot of positives to the team, but the one question mark going in is after losing Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton, just how good the interior defensive line was going to be. And obviously Hero Kanu had transferred down to Texas as well. So you were kind of reloading the defensive tackle room. And dude, I went into that viewing not knowing anything about number 98. And I came out with 98 all over my notebook because I'm kind of an old fashioned guy where I just like write numbers down and plus minuses next to their name and everything. And from there, I'm like, all right, that kid popped against the Texas game. Popped. And obviously they had a great defensive performance there. And it was just week after week, man, just stacking performances. And that comes to the very last game of the season. You know, even in a loss against Miami, I thought Kayden McDonald was a wrecker against Miami. And he made things very difficult for the Miami Hurricanes and their run game at times in that game. So this kid at 6'3", 326 pounds, nose tackles tend to be a little bit undervalued on the NFL level. The guys that are going to do kind of the dirty work, zero, shade, like that type of guy. But he is a first-round nose tackle. Like, there is no doubt. He's going to be a butt kicker in the NFL. His sack production might never be amazing, but what he can do in the run game and how he can patrol it, that guy is a plus starting nose tackle early on in his NFL career, and he has a chance to be a Pro Bowler if he develops properly.
Do you see him being a 3-down player at the next level?
It's such a tough question because I think he's got enough physicality and explosiveness to push the pocket enough to be serviceable on passing downs, but I also don't think he's a dynamic player in terms of getting after the passer either. So in the old adage of like the 2-down run stoppers, that's probably more where Kayden McDonald fits. He's going to be definitely more of an early down guy, a guy that specializes against the run. But I just think what he does, Jay, like, is so valuable because although his pass rush, like, I don't think he's going to get more than like 5-ish sacks a year, which is still a solid number for a nose tackle. But what he does is he makes everyone's job around him so much easier. Like, it's impossible to double team Caden Curry all the time because you have that 330-pound behemoth on the inside. It's impossible to get a hat on Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese consistently on the second level because you need two blockers to be able to even try to handle a guy like a Kayden McDonald. So although he's not going to be a sack artist on the NFL level, I just think his value comes from making everybody around him so much better, which is why I think that he's going to be valued heavily in the NFL.
You put a video out on Instagram, and it was the one missed tackle that Sonny Styles had this year was against Miami. Kind of just slipped off Mark Fletcher, and it was one of the things where Sonny Styles was a sure tackler all season. But I think a lot of that was because of McDonald's presence up front and him making the interior very, very muddy for the offense, and it freed up Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese to kind of be able to scrape over the top and to make those tackles. How quickly do you think will he be able to make that same impact to the next level?
I mean, I think day one almost. I mean, there's always a maturation process that happens, and guys need to assimilate to the speed and all that type of stuff. But he's a guy that's always going to play in tight quarters, right? Like I worry about guys maturing and working against the speed of the NFL when they're more space-oriented players. They're guys that need to get used to things happening a lot faster. For Kayden McDonald, I'm lining him up on a zero on a center a lot of times or in a shade and telling him to beat the ever-loving you-know-what out of the guy in front of him. Like, that's his responsibility to take up multiple blockers. I think he's going to be able to do that stuff from day one. The question is, how does his pass rush and ability on obvious pass situations, how does that develop? I don't have an answer for that. I think he's explosive enough to give you some things in that capacity. Is he quick twitch, quick enough to be able to be a guy that can split gaps consistently? I'm not sure he's necessarily ever going to be that player, but I think the patrolling aspect of the run game is something that's going to be there, I think, pretty early on in his career.
One of my favorite things about him when I watched him play was how quick his hands were. And how quick he could hit you, get you off of him, and he could make a play or push the ball carrier towards someone else to where they can make a play. How rare is that for a guy of his size to be able to have hands that quick?
I mean, it's pretty rare, which is why he's a first-round nose tackle. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are going to go in like the third, fourth round who are big, mauling presence as a nose tackle, but maybe their hands aren't quick enough to consistently get off of blocks, right? They're more to take on blocks and to hold the point of attack. Kayden McDonald's going to be a guy that's going to go in the first round because he has the ability to also get off of blocks and to make plays in the backfield. Like, he's that type of guy, right? So I think that's what makes him super unique, and I think that you hit on it perfectly, is like that quick ability to strike, press, get off of blocks, makes him not only a nose tackle that can hold the point of attack and take up blocks, but he's also a guy that can create some negatives in the run game especially. So I think that makes him a very unique player. I think he's also, like, he's a nose tackle build, right? So he's a little bit stumpy. He's a little bit like he carries a lot of weight, obviously. So I do think people are going to underrate the explosiveness that he has off the snap just in general. When he's asked to just fly off the football and to win in the first couple steps, he has not only the foot speed and hand speed to be able to do it, but I do think that he has all the upside in the world to continue to develop as a penetrator. But again, the day one aspect of his game is that you're going to ask him to maul dudes in the run game, which he does very, very well.
Ryan and I are on the same page when it comes to Kayden McDonald's decision to enter the NFL draft as an underclassman. Are we on the same page about Arvell Reese? That's coming up after the break. This episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action every single game day of the playoffs. Because right now, every college football playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. Here's what I love about it. You get to use a profit boost on the bets you already feel good about. Ride with the favorite when you think a team controls the matchup. Take a shot on the underdog if you feel an upset coming, or build a parlay around the players and moments you think decide the game. Then you apply the profit boost and go after even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays you out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day. Now, Ryan is on the record on this show making a pretty bold proclamation. I almost said doclamation. Doesn't make any sense. A pretty bold proclamation about Arvell Reese earlier this year, and that was probably October or November when Ryan made a statement that I kind of agree with because I trust his analysis about where Arvell Reese stands when it comes to guys entering the draft. A lot of football's been played since then. The Buckeyes' two losses of the season were played after Ryan made that statement. This is a tricky one, Ryan, because as good as he was, the production at times wasn't there. But I'm still leaning when it comes to Arvell Reese, same with Kayden McDonald, that him going to the NFL right now was also the right decision.
I mean, he's going to be a top 5 pick, most likely, right? So, like, turning down that type of money to come back to college, I know college athletes can get paid now, but Ohio State's not playing Arvell Reese what he's going to make in the year 1 in the NFL as a top 5 draft pick. Like, that's just not going to be what happens, especially because the value chart of positions on the NFL level is also going to be weighed into how much a team on the college level is going to pay a player to retain him, right? So although Arvell Reese is a star and was a star for Ohio State, they still understand that he's a linebacker, right? So you're not going to pay linebacker top dollar. You're going to play the defensive tackles, the offensive tackles, the quarterbacks. Like, that's wide receivers. That's who the positions that are getting paid on the college level. So it makes sense from a financial perspective. Would I have liked Arvell Reese to have a second year as a full-time starter? Sure. I mean, that's just a natural thing, right? Because the physical tools are stupid. I mean, like, you can't teach a kid to be 6'4", 245 with the length he has, with the explosiveness he has, the foot speed he has. Like, he is a rare athlete at the position. But it is also a process-based position playing Mike linebacker on the NFL level to be able to see how things are moving, to process quicker, to get into your fits quicker. Like, all those things, speed and experience does matter of processing. So I think it would have been beneficial. But, Jay, like, I actually, here's a hot take, I guess. I thought Matt Patricia did a great job as a defensive coordinator this year for Ohio State. But I do not think that he utilized Arvell Reese in the second half of the year as well as he could have. I mean, early in the year, it was attack. And then when they used him in coverage early in the year, he had some flashes. For whatever reason, down the stretch, he was just like a mush rush spy player. Like, that's all he was. It wasn't let to attack, was used on the edge primarily only as a run setter. Like, he was just not a guy that was allowed to attack. On the NFL level, Arvell Reese is going to be, I think, a Mike linebacker who can also do a lot of different things for you from a pass rush perspective in some sub-package opportunities. But he's still a guy that I do want to attack, get downhill, explosive. That's his game. Asking him to read and react a little bit too often, slow to his fits, like, that is not advantageous for his overall upside. So he's still going to be a top 5 pick. And I actually like he got the ability to be under 2 defensive coordinators in Jim Knowles and in Matt Patricia. Jim Knowles has a very advanced system. Matt Patricia comes directly from the NFL. So I think mentally he's going to be there. Like, you're above the 8 ball against a lot of guys. You're ahead of the curve. But I do want to see him become with a creative defensive coordinator, a guy that's going to ask him to be explosive, to get downhill. If he finds the right fit, I am fully on record. I think that he is the number 1 player in this class. I think he has the most upside of just about any player in this class if he finds the right situation. Find it, and I think we're looking at an all-pro player on the next level.
Ryan, there are going to be some people watching or listening to this show that also see NFL draft scouts on X that are saying Arvell Reese is going to play on the edge in the NFL. That's actually going to be his primary position. You've never come on here and said he's primarily going to be an edge rusher or a guy out on the outside. You've always come on here and said he's a Mike linebacker at the next level. Why do you still believe that?
Because I think he could. So I think he can play on the edge, right? Like, if a team really wanted him to be a stand-up rusher, whatever, like, I think he could do those things because he's got enough explosiveness and length to do it. But when I look at that kid, Jay, like, I just say, there's so much I want to do with him, right? Like, there's so much that I want to do with him schematically, situationally. And as an edge rusher, there's only so much that I can do with a player to be diverse, right? Like different alignments, sure, but at 245 pounds, it's not like I'm going to wide him up as a 3 technique against a pass much, right? Like he's going to be a guy that's going to be playing mostly on the edge, and I could do some different stunts and whatnot and drop him into coverage at times or whatever. But as a Mike linebacker, that on third and obvious pass situations, I can get super creative with how I utilize him, whether it's as an interior or an exterior blitzer. I think that that's the best case scenario for him because I don't want to limit all the cool things that Arvell Reese can do for a defense. And I think if you say he's just an edge, I think that there's less diverse things that I can do with him. As a Mike linebacker, I think I can move him to Will at times. I think I could play him at Sam in 4-3 alignments. I think I can rush him off the edge. I think I can rush him from the interior. I could do a lot of different things with him, and I think you could do more as a true linebacker that could do a lot of different things.
So, Ryan, before the show, we talked about trying to fit certain players in and have the right conversations with this show coming out the day the underclassmen have to declare for the NFL draft if they're going to go in the 2026 draft in a few months from now. Wow, it's going to be coming up really quickly. So, Ryan, let's hit a few of these guys right now. And it's possible that while you're listening to this, these decisions have already been made by these players. So we're going to frame it in a way that we don't know what the decision is. We're just going to see if maybe they made the right decision by staying or by going. Jermaine Mathews Jr. is a guy that had some good play this year. He got scored on against Indiana. The Indiana scored their lone touchdown against him. And it was a really good play by Mendoza to Surratt. Pretty good throw. Just he was not in the right position at the time to make that stop. We don't know his decision. But what decision do you think Jermaine Mathews Jr. should make about either declaring for the NFL draft or staying at Ohio State?
I think he should go back to school. I think he has everything that I want in a corner in terms of the movement skills, the physicality. I think he is a guy that could also play a little bit inside and out at times because I think he's got enough hip fluidity to play in the slot if you want him to play there. But I do think that he's still a guy that clearly is a 1-year full-time starter. I know he played a lot in 2024, but like as a full-time starter, I think there's still things he needs to see. I think there's experience that he needs to gain. I like the upside a lot, but like the upside right now, Jay, I think if he goes back to school and he has a big year, he's a top 64 pick, right? Like a top 2 rounder. I think Mathews has that type of upside athletically, but if he enters the draft now, I mean, we're talking about like 4th rounds, give or take a round. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about probably somewhere from 3rd to 5th round. I just think he's a better athlete than that. And he's a better overall potential player than that. So I think that he's a guy that just needs to go back and play football. Go back, play football, be a part of the 2027 NFL draft. I think that's a lot better for his potential upside as a football player overall.
And Ryan, I'm with you there with that decision too. But earlier I made a comment about I prefer for a lot of guys to have 2 years of being a starter before going off to the NFL, because you learn a lot in year 1, but in year 2, a lot of defensive coordinators or OCs, they're game planning for you. They're trying to figure out ways to overcome what you're good at. You can even be a leader on your team, but in year 2, you're not only trying to make yourself better, you're trying to overcome some of the things the opposing coaches are throwing at you. And I think for Mathews, he desperately needs that too. Like a 4th round pick, yes, but a guy that could be, as you say, a top 64 guy in the 2027 draft, it's a no-brainer to me. If I'm advising him, stay in school 1 more year, you're going to make your money at Ohio State. If you haven't graduated already, you're going to graduate and get your degree from a very good university. There's so many positives, even off the field, that make this decision, if that's what he decides to do, the right one for him to make.
Well, and I would even say it's a position-specific conversation too, Jay, like to add on to it. At cornerback, it is the most isolated position on the field, man. Like, they call it the island for a reason, right? Like, you are there one-on-one, and every time you mess up, it gets highlighted a ton on every single broadcast because you let up touchdowns and you let up big plays when you're not in the right spot. So, cornerback is a spot especially. I want guys to not only be physically prepared, but I want them to be mentally prepared. Like, I want them to be confident going into the NFL, because here's what's going to happen to Jermaine Mathews if he's in the NFL in 2026. He's talented enough where he's probably going to play somewhat early into his NFL career. Whenever he's thrown to the fire, 2 things are going to happen to him. He is going to make some plays, and 2, he's going to give up some plays. And some guys mentally, like the best that I've ever talked to, like I had a good relationship with like J.C. Horn coming out of South Carolina. he had a switch where it was like, I don't give a you know what if I give up a play. Don't care. I'm going to get the next play. And corners need that. They need it. I don't know Jermaine Mathews personally, but what I do know is when you're not prepared for that mental side of making that jump to the NFL and something bad happens, some guys can't get back out of the hole. Some guys just crawl up and they are done over the years. So I want Jermaine Mathews and any other cornerback that's going to the NFL to be as prepared mentally as possible, because you are going to be isolated. You're going to make some bad plays. You're going to give up some big plays. Can you respond to the next play? Some corners have it naturally. Some guys need to learn it by being a little bit more mature and a little bit more soundly ready for the next level. And I just don't know if Jermaine Mathews is necessarily there right now. Can he sink or swim on the NFL level? I'm not sure about that right now. I think another year would do him wonders in terms of his confidence to play that position on the NFL level.
Where should Max Klare play football in 2026? We'll answer that question after the break. Ryan, this is a different conversation because I believe Max Klare is the only guy we've talked about so far that has multiple years of being a starter in college. Now, his 2 years, at least two. I don't know how many years he started at Purdue, but he had an all Big Ten year at Purdue, transferred to Ohio State, full-time starter there. Throughout that year, he did become a better blocker, which I think was a big reason why he wanted to go to a better program and a bigger program. Plus, Ohio State wants their tight ends to be really good blockers. What decision should Max Klare make?
I don't think there's a wrong decision here because I see both sides to it. I would probably declare for the NFL draft if I'm Max Klare. And would he be another guy that I would like to have another year at Ohio State? Yes, I would like to see it because I think that foundationally speaking, there are still a couple things that need to improve. But I do think that you said one thing that's key. At Purdue, he was a pass catcher, and he was split out a ton. He was used as an H-back. He wasn't asked to, he blocked, but he wasn't a dominant blocker at Purdue. There was clearly an intention, which is why I compared him to a Zach Ertz when he was coming at Purdue. He seemed like that type of, and Zach Ertz, for anybody that's followed him in the NFL, Zach Ertz doesn't block a lick, but he catches a lot of footballs, right, in his career, which helps. Catches a lot. Ohio State, I think rightfully, I don't think this was a bad decision by Ohio State. They said, we need to get you bigger and we need to get you better in line to be able to block because that's going to help your evaluation on the NFL level. But in doing that, I do think that there's an interesting conversation of, is Max Klare now wearing too much weight, too much armor on him as a football player? Because the things that I loved about him most at Purdue was he was silky smooth, man, got in and out of breaks. And I think that's still there. And although you're sharing the ball with Jeremiah Smith and Cornell Tate and Brandon Inniss and all these really talented wide receivers, he still had over 400 yards receiving this past year. So it wasn't like he wasn't used at all. It was just very sporadically within that structure of the offense. So there's a chance that he goes back and he's the main receiver and he has 600 yards next year and he goes a little bit higher. But I think the fact that he now has experience, one, as a pass catching threat, and then two, as more of a blocker at Ohio State and kind of maturing his game, I think he's ready for the NFL. And because the other side to it, Jay, because these are all multi-layered conversations, it's not a good tight end class this year. It's not. So Kenyon Sadiq, if he declares, I think he will, out of Oregon, he will be the first tight end taken and he'll be a first-round draft pick. After that, it's like a battle of who's the next tight end that's available or the next tight end that's going to go. There's some people that are going to like Michael Trigg from Baylor, for instance. There's some people that are going to love Max Klare. There's a couple interesting names, but tight end 2 is wide open in this class. And if Max Klare has a big draft process, whether that means him going down to Mobile for the Senior Bowl or Frisco for the East-West Shrine or go up to the Combine, I think he has a chance to be a riser within the class. So I would bet on myself if I was him. I think I would give it a shot at the NFL with the experience that he has.
The next 3 guys on our list, we're going to have to do these kind of quickly because I have another thought for Ryan that we're going to use to close the show, but it's not about the NFL draft, but it is about these players. Ryan, there's Carson Hizman, Luke Montgomery, and Austin Siereveld. All 3 guys are multi-year starters. Hizman's had the oddest path of the 3 because he started, got benched, became a starter again, and then now he's a full-time. I guess so. I've never seen that happen to really anybody. What's happened to him over the past 3 years. the way I look at all three of these guys have a place in the NFL draft and the NFL down the road. These players, all three of them, would benefit in a huge way to stay at Ohio State for another year. Siereveld, to me, was playing out of position last year, and so I would love to see him more on the interior. Montgomery was possibly the strongest guy on the offensive line last year. I just want to see him do it again, and same thing for Hizman. I want to see him do it at that same level for back-to-back seasons.
So the two positions that I always talk about in terms of what experience mattering the most is quarterback and offensive line. I think experience on the college level matters so much on the offensive line. So I want, just naturally speaking, usually guys to go back to college for another year if they need it. Unless you're a bona fide top 20 NFL draft pick, first rounder, just in general, I think that you could be best served by going back for another year because, rolling through them real quick, Hizman just kind of is what he is at this point. He's a borderline draftable football player. He's a little bit of a later rounds guy. Whether he comes out this year or next year is the same. So why not go back to school? Because you're probably going to make more money in NIL next year than you will on your first year rookie contract with where you're going to get drafted. So he should go back, no doubt. Luke Montgomery's still pretty young. He's gained a lot of experience this year, but multi-year starter. I know he started a little tiny bit, or he played a little tiny bit in 2024 down the stretch, but starting full-time for 2 years would be crucial for him, and he has a chance to now ascend maybe to being an All-American in 2026. He has that type of upside to him. And then Siereveld, I agree with you. Ohio State should be doing whatever they possibly can to portal in a true left tackle to let Siereveld play inside. Because Siereveld did really well this year for what he is. He's a guard playing tackle. That's what he is. He's going to be a guard in the NFL level without a doubt. It's good that he has the experience because now you could say, hey, I can play tackle in a pinch if you need me. But I think that kid needs to go back and then get some guard film because I think both those kids, Montgomery and Siereveld, have a chance to go pretty early in the 2027 NFL draft. But both, I think, need another year of maturation. And I think Siereveld needs to show that he can play the position that he's going to play on the NFL level.
I'm going to throw this offensive line at you. I don't know if you'll like it.
Okay.
But I think, and I don't even know if you know one of the players very well, but I feel like the reconfiguration of the offensive line may be better for Ohio State next year. Left tackle Ian Moore, left guard Luke Montgomery, center Hizman, right guard is Siereveld, then right tackle is Daniels. How does that sound?
Yeah, actually, funny enough, Ian Moore was a guy that Notre Dame recruited a little bit out of high school, so I know Ian Moore from the recruiting side. I think he's more suitable to play tackle than maybe a Siereveld is, just because I think he's a little bit more flexible, from my experience, or at least my experience with him as a high school recruit. I don't know how he's developed on the college level, but I am in favor of trying to get your interior as strong as possible if you're Ohio State, because I think your run game was inconsistent this year, not only because I think CJ Donaldson wasn't very good and you got him from the portal and Bo Jackson was a freshman, but I think the interior offensive line also just was not consistently as good as possible. I think there's a reason that Tegra, however you pronounce his last name, is at Kentucky now, right? He's just not a guy that should have been starting at Ohio State. But another year of Philip Daniels maturing, because Philip Daniels had some really good moments early, had a really rough middle of the season, and then I thought he started playing a little bit better down the stretch, right? So, you're hoping year two of Philip Daniels takes a step forward. That interior, in theory, should be very good. It all kind of comes down to, is Ian Moore ready to be a left tackle at Ohio State? Not really sure about that. Is it a Carter Lowe situation? Because I know he was a really talented younger player that's on the roster as well. Do you portal in a guy? Either way, though, I am a fan of trying to move Austin Siereveld inside because I think he could flourish there.
Why do you think Ryan Day has been so stubborn when it comes to the offensive line and hasn't been able to figure this thing out?
Well, I think the left tackle spot, obviously you got Josh Simmons for a couple years, right? So that was a good evaluation. But I think there's just been some bad evaluations at offensive tackle over the last few years, both in the high school route, but then you got the kid last year from Rice. And I remember talking to you before that, Jay, and I'm like, Jay, that kid can't play. But you paid him over $1 million to go play offensive tackle at Ohio State, right? Where it's that kid can't play at Ohio State. I'm telling you, he can't play. So you made a bad evaluation there. You've made a couple of bad evaluations on the high school route. You have an offensive line that's littered with really talented interior players, but unfortunately, you haven't been able to hit on enough evaluations at offensive tackle. You did it with Josh Simmons, and you won a championship with what was the right tackle's name that was just kind of a lunch pail guy that had played
Josh Fryer.
Schreier.
Josh
Josh
Schreier,
Schreier was a good player. He was a good player, but he should not have been playing right tackle at Ohio State. Like, he just shouldn't have been. But he had to, because you didn't recruit and develop and identify offensive tackles well enough. So whatever is going on in that offensive line room, Ohio State needs to make it a priority over the next couple recruiting cycles and the transfer portal periods that are happening now, but then are happening into the future as well. Next year, they need to hit on more true offensive tackle types. Ethan Onwenu, or however you pronounce that kid's name, out of Rice, he wasn't a good enough evaluation. It was a bad evaluation. I think Daniels was a solid evaluation, but Daniels probably should have needed a year to just kind of get it together before being thrust into a full-time starter. You made a couple bad evaluations, though, which has kind of hurt the offensive tackle position at Ohio State right now.
He is Ryan Roberts of A to Z Sports. You can follow him on X at Rise, the letter in Draft. You can follow me on X and on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. We're up out of here, fans, Buckeye fans, on a hump day. We'll see you next time.